Namaste, aloha, my name is Janapati Das. Welcome to the Nectar of Devotion class. I apologize, my last video got cut off in mid-sentence. Sometimes happens, my phone fills up and it just shuts off. So hopefully this will not happen today. Please accept my respects, everyone. We will finish the chapter 1, and I'd like to offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual master and to my spiritual grandfather. We will start with some chanting Krishna's names, so please join along. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gora Karuna Swarupaya Hare Krishna Vishtayate Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gorakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Vishtayate Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol, Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol, Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gorakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prasthati Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Adwaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Okay, so leading on where we left off, we got cut off actually. So, we'll just start reading from this happiness of becoming one with the Supreme. Srila Rupa Goswami says that if Ramananda, or the happiness of becoming one with the Supreme, is multiplied by 1 trillion-fold, still it cannot be compared with an atomic fraction of the happiness derived from the ocean of devotional service. So, we talked last time about the happiness, 3 happinesses: the happiness of material enjoyment, the happiness of merging into the Brahma effulgence, and the happiness derived from serving Krishna in devotional service, which is the highest. In the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, Prahlad Maharaj, while satisfying Lord Nrsingadev by his prayer, says, "My dear Lord of the universe, I am feeling transcendental pleasure in your presence, and have become merged in the ocean of happiness. I now consider the happiness of Brahmananda to be no more than the water in the impression left by a cow's hoof in the earth compared to this ocean of bliss." Similarly, it is confirmed in the Bhavarata Deepika Sri Dharma Swami's commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam. "My dear Lord, some of the fortunate persons who are swimming in the ocean of your nectar of devotion and who are relishing the nectar of the narration of your pastime certainly know ecstasies which immediately minimize the value of the happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Such a transcendental devotee regards any kind of happiness other than devotional service as no better than straw on the street." So in the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna just abandon all varieties of religion, of religiousness, or religious paths, religious rituals and regulations, and just surrender to me in devotion. Such a transcendental devotee regards any kind of happiness other than the devotional service as no better than straw on the street. So we were discussing this idea of straw being very low and dirty, so it's very insignificant. Straw on the street is not significant. Attracting Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami has stated that devotional service attracts even Krishna. Krishna attracts everyone, but devotional service attracts Krishna. This comes in the form of Radharani, Srimate Radharani. The love of Krishna is even more potent than Krishna himself, which Krishna is the unlimited, but the love and devotion to Krishna Krishna even becomes attracted to it. And there's a story in, I think it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam or Uddhava Gita, or one of these stories about Narada Muni, Krishna telling Narada Muni how he, just about the story, the same story that he, I think it was Rukmini, and Rukmini was pining for Krishna, and Krishna was there, but Krishna wanted to taste what Radharani and Rukmini were tasting, so he came in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna in the mood of Radha. The symbol of devotional service in the highest degree is Radharani. Krishna is called Madana Mohana, which means that he is so attractive that he can defeat all the attraction of thousands of Cupid. But Radharani is still more attractive, for she can even attract Krishna. Therefore, devotees call her Madana Mohana Mohani, the attractor of Cupid. To perform devotional service means to follow in the footsteps of Radharani, and devotees in Vrindavan put themselves under the care of Radharani in order to achieve perfection in their devotional service. In other words, devotional service is not an activity of the material world. It is directly under the control of Radharani. In Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that the Mahatmas, or great souls, are under the protection of Daivi Prakriti, the internal energy Radharani. So being directly under the control of the internal potency of Krishna, devotional service attracts even Krishna himself. This fact is corroborated by Krishna in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th chapter, 1st verse, where he says, "My dear Uddhava, you may know it from me that the attraction I feel for devotional service rendered by my devotees is not to be attained even by the performance of mystic yoga, philosophical speculation, ritualistic sacrifices, the study of Vedanta, the practice of severe austerities, or the giving of everything in charity. These are, of course, very nice activities, but they are not as attractive to me as a transcendental loving service rendered by my devotees." How Krishna becomes attracted by the devotional service of his devotees is described by Narada in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 10th chapter, 37th verses. There, Narada addresses King Yudhisthira, while the king is appreciating the glories of the character of Prahlad Maharaj. And Prahlad Maharaj, the devotee always appreciates the activities of other devotees. Yudhisthira Maharaj was appreciating the qualities of Prahlad, and that is one symptom of a pure devotee. A pure devotee never thinks of himself as great. He always thinks that other devotees are greater than himself. The king was thinking, Prahlad Maharaj is actually a devotee of the Lord, while I am nothing. And while thinking this, he was addressed by Narada as follows: "My dear King Yudhisthira, in this world you, the Pandava brothers, are the only fortunate people. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared on this planet and is presenting himself to you as an ordinary human being. He is always with you in all circumstances. He is living with you and covering himself from the eyes of others. Others cannot understand that he is the Supreme Lord, but he is still living with you as your cousin, as your friend, and even as your messenger. Therefore, you must know that nobody in this world is more fortunate than you." In the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna appeared in his universal form, Arjuna prayed, "My dear Krishna, I thought of you as my cousin brother, and so I have shown disrespect to you in so many ways, calling you Krishna or friend. But you are so great that I could not understand." So that was the position of the Pandavas. Although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the greatest among all the greats, still he remained with those royal brothers, being attracted by their devotion, by their friendship, and by their love. That is proof of how great this process of devotional service is. It can attract even the Supreme Personality of Godhead. God is great, but devotional service is greater than God because it attracts him. People who are not in devotional service can never understand what great value there is in rendering service to the Lord. Chapter 2, the first stages of devotion. The three categories of devotional service, which Srila Rupa Goswami describes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, are listed as devotional service in practice, devotional service in ecstasy, and devotional service in pure love of Godhead. There are many subheadings in each of these categories. Generally, it is understood that in the category of devotional service in practice, there are two different qualities. Devotional service in ecstasy has 4 qualities, and devotional service in pure love of Godhead has 6 qualities. These qualities will be explained by Srila Rupa Goswami later on. So, yes, I mean, the yoga philosophy is so complicated and so, not complicated, but detailed and specific and deep. And so a lot of times people think, oh, these Hare Krishnas, they just chant, they just chant. They don't have any deep understanding of Vedanta. But actually, it's very, very deep. In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami suggests that the person eligible for Krishna consciousness or devotional service can be classified by his particular taste. He says that devotional service is a continual process from one's previous life. No one can take to devotional service unless he has had some previous connection with it. So again, the importance of giving people Krishna, chanting Krishna's names to people, giving people prasadam. Even if for one time they hear the name of Krishna, they will carry that with them into their next life, and their spiritual life has begun. For example, suppose in this life I practice devotional service to some extent, even though it is not 100% perfectly performed, still whatever I have done will not be lost. This is stated in, Arjuna actually asked Krishna this question, whether the process of devotional service, of the service to Krishna, sadhana bhakti, will be lost, or that compared to other forms of austerities and practices in mystic yoga and whatnot, rules and rituals and whatnot. And Krishna explained that wherever a person has left off, even if they've gone away from chanting, they will begin that where they are in their next life. They'll pick up from that spot. And he explains to, sometimes in a practice in bhakti yoga or yoga sadhana bhakti, even a little bit can put a person into a situation, be born into a wealthy family that practices bhakti yoga, or just be in a situation that they were able to do that. And we've seen this time and time again with stories like Narada Muni. Narada Muni was fortunate enough just to have in one life, in one of his lives, he was actually a demigod or a great something. I think he was a demigod, but he offended some other demigods and some sages by making fun of their looks because he was very beautiful. Or no, I know what it was. Sorry, that was a different story. He had a beautiful voice, but in the presence of demigods, instead of praising Lord Narayan or Krishna in his songs, he started praising demigods and women and whatnot, and so he got cursed by the demigods to be born again. But he was very fortunate that his mother was bitten by a snake, and he was actually in association with some great devotees of Krishna, and they gave him prasadam. So, and into his next life, he became Narada Muni. So, one can never underestimate the power of prasadam, the power of chanting Krishna's names even one time. For example, suppose in this life, I read that. In my next life, from the very point where I stop in this life, I shall begin again. In this way, there is always a continuity. But even if there is no continuity, if only by chance a person takes interest in a pure devotee's instruction, he can be accepted and can advance in devotional service. Anyway, for a person who have a natural taste for understanding books like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is easier for those who are simply accustomed to mental speculation and argumentative processes. To support this statement, there are many authoritative assertions by the learned scholars of bygone ages. According to the general opinions, a person may become governed by certain convictions derived by his own arguments and decisions. Then another person, who may be a greater logician, will nullify these conclusions and establish another thesis. In this way, the path of argument will never be safe or conclusive. The Srimad Bhagavatam recommends, therefore, that one follow in the footsteps of the authorities. So we follow in the footsteps of our authorities, which is an acharya. Acharya means the one who has fallen and followed in the footsteps of the previous teachers or authorities. And we do the same. We don't speculate, we don't come up with our own conclusions, because, like they said before, in the scientific process, somebody will come forth with a theory, and then somebody will come along and nullify that theory and put up their own theory. And this happens in philosophy, and happens in psychology and other sciences and whatnot. So nothing is ever conclusive, really. It's speculative. But the process of sadhana bhakti, the process of bhakti yoga, is solid because we take our authority from the disciplic lineage of spiritual masters, acharyas, who are handing down the Vedic scriptures, the knowledge of the Vedic scriptures from Krishna, unchanged. And we take it, we accept it, and we apply it in our life. Here is a general description of devotional service given by Sri Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Previously, it has been stated that devotional service can be divided into three categories, namely devotional service in practice, devotional service in ecstasy, and devotional service in pure love of God. Now, Sri Rupa Goswami proposes to describe devotional service in practice. Practice means employing our senses in some particular type of work. So, in the practice of devotional service, sadhana is a practice. It is a practice because bhakti yoga is a pure and unadulterated person who is in a pure devotee in bhakti yoga has no desire for material wealth, or they are one point focused on Krishna. And so the idea of practicing is given by our spiritual master, the process. So the process of bhakti yoga is applicable in our practice as it is as a goal. So we continually do, and we continually head to a point, but we continually, eternally do. So we're eternally perfecting our love for Krishna. Therefore, so in this case, we, in the process of sadhana bhakti, is because we are embodied in a particular body with the conditioning of material energy, of the three modes of material nature, and our consciousness is at some state. So we are given the process to cleanse our heart. So one should chant the holy names of the Lord, right? The hearing and chanting of Krishna's names purifies the heart, helps cleanse the heart of all the dust that accumulated, the dust of material, the dust of false ego, and the false premise of ahankara, that we are this matter, and we must find our happiness somewhere in this matter in the material world in order to be happy and satisfied. So this conditioning, this illusion that we are in, means that the practice, that we are not practicing devotional service purely. We are making offenses, actually. But our Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so merciful that in this day and age he's given us this process to, even though we are practicing it offensively, we try our best to follow the premise of our spiritual master, or the teachings of our spiritual master. We will make progress, our heart will be cleansed, and we will make a definite progress towards pure love of Krishna. Therefore, devotional service and practice means utilizing our different sensory organs in service to Krishna. So Goswami is the master of the senses. Godas is the servant of the senses. And when we are the servant of the senses, we are trying to engage through our senses to try to manipulate and gather pleasure for ourselves falsely. When we are the Goswami, we are utilizing our senses in the service of Krishna. So instead of looking at Playboy magazine with our eyes, we look at pictures of Krishna, or we use the eyes to read. Instead of using our talking capacity to speak nonsense or just whatever, we read the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, or we talk about Krishna's pastimes. Some of the senses are meant for acquiring knowledge, and some are meant for executing the conclusions of our thinking, feeling, and willing. So practice means employing both the mind and the senses in practical devotional service. So as we've learned from the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 7 of the different kinds of senses and the mind is being mana. It is a subtle material energy, right? We utilize our mind in the service of Krishna. We utilize our senses in the service of Krishna. The practice is not for developing something artificial. For example, a child learns or practices to walk. This walking is not unnatural. The walking capacity is there originally in the child, and simply by a little practice he walks very nicely. Similarly, devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the natural instinct of every living entity. So our love for Krishna is inherent. It's like wetness in water. We have it existent eternally. It's part of our being. It's not like we are creating something by doing some mantras, coming up with something else that we can gather together, accumulate. No, we're uncovering this process. We're bringing it out. We've willingly covered this by our enviousness, and now we are uncovering it. And just like Bhaktivedanta Swami says, the natural loving propensity for Krishna is eternally there, but it is covered to one degree or another. Similarly, devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the natural instinct of every living entity. Even uncivilized men like the Aborigines offered their respectful obeisances to something wonderful exhibited by nature's law. And they appreciate that behind some wonderful exhibition or action there is something supreme. So this consciousness, though lying dormant in those who are materially contaminated, is found in every living entity. And when purified, this is called Krishna consciousness. There are certain prescribed methods for employing our senses or mind in such a way that our dormant consciousness for loving Krishna will be invoked, as much as a child with a little practice can begin to walk. One who has no basic walking capacity cannot walk by practice. Similarly, Krishna consciousness cannot be aroused simply by practice. Actually, there is no such practice. Yeah, what we were saying, it's eternally there. It's already there. It's not a practice. It's not anything that we can practice because it doesn't exist that way. It exists eternally already, but it's covered. Our consciousness is dampened and not. It's like we're in the darkness, right? We're in the darkness, so we are uncovering, opening this cave that is covering the light within, and so the light can shine in. Okay. Similarly, Krishna consciousness. Okay. When we wish to develop our innate capacity for devotional service, there are certain processes which, by our accepting or executing them, will cause that dormant capacity to be invoked. Such practice is called sadhana bhakti. Right, we talked about that. Every living entity under the spell of material energy is held to be in an abnormal condition of madness. I love that. Every living entity under the spell of material energy is held to be in an abnormal condition of madness. We're crazy. We think that it's like the king that wears no clothes, the emperor who wears no clothes, and he's told that he's got this beautiful thing, but he's actually nude, and everybody can see him as naked. So similarly, our conditioning to one degree or another in this, especially in this age of Kali, is an abnormal condition of madness. It's a craziness. And when you try to tell people they're naked, and they're like, I'm not naked, I've got this beautiful, but you can't see it. I mean, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, generally the conditioned soul is mad because he is always engaged in activities which are the causes of bondage and suffering. You know, if you were to say to somebody, he would say, you know, I'm going to be free from, I'm setting my freedom, and they just shackle themselves. You would think that person is crazy, but that's exactly what we are doing in this material world. Everybody does things for freedom, right? You know, freedom in the I want a freedom to do this and be me, you and me, and we can just do whatever my mind and my desires dictate to me, and this is freedom. And when you are telling me, or religious people are telling you that actually that's very sinful, when they say sinful, it's actually because we are willingly putting our shackles on our body, putting our shackles in bondage in this material world by the activities that we do, under the guise of thinking, you know, my Devi's thinking, oh, it's about your freedom. You're free, you know, you're a free woman, or you're free to be a transgender, or you can just change this and change that and do this and do that, and it's freedom. But actually it's not. It's this madness is in the premise of thinking that we're doing this for freedom, when we're actually creating great bondage, and not just in this life but in the lives to come. We're binding ourselves to the wheel of samsara, to be born again and again by our activity. Spirit soul in its original condition is joyful, blissful, eternal, and full of knowledge. And we're seeking, under the illusion, we're seeking for this joyfulness, blissfulness, eternal, and full of knowledge. We're seeking for it, but we seek for it in the things that shackle us and that create more and more bondage. So our happiness is never satisfied in these activities. The unshackling is when we come to understand Krishna and Krishna consciousness. So that is the true wiping away of the mirror of the soul, or unshackling of those shackles, or being lost in the cavern. And the spiritual master says, this is here's a torchlight of truth. Let me show you the way out. Only by this, his implication in material activities, has he become miserable. Only by implication in material activities has he become miserable. Why am I so miserable? Because I'm implicating myself by my activities in these things. So, unfortunately, Christians have a sort of poor fund of knowledge, and religious people have a poor fund of knowledge. They can't really explain. They just say, well, it's displeasing to God. And that's just not, I mean, it's true. It's displeasing to God. That is true. And it is true that it's in the Bible. But they can't really explain it in a scientific detail of why it is displeasing to God. And because it makes God unhappy that you know, if you're going to be doing something and you're hurting yourself, and a person's saying, why are you flagellating yourself? Why are you beating yourself up? Why are you doing these things that are causing great suffering to you? Oh, I'm just trying to be happy. You know, it's my freedom. And that would make anybody sad, because you can see that this person is completely miserable by their own activities. So only by his implication in material activities has he become miserable, temporary, and full of ignorance. So then the ignorance comes with it. Oh no, I know exactly what I'm doing. And people in heavy drug use, they also are in the mode of ignorance. They're in tamas. So they just think it's great. They just think it's wonderful. And you're just like, you're destroying your life around you. Oh, no, this is great. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. They're in this darkness, this ignorance. So that makes it even worse. The further and further you get into the mode of ignorance, the more you think that, I know what I'm doing. With these religious people, they're just fascist and fanatics and out of date, and there's not even really a God, and it's just like blah, 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 blah. This is due to vikarma. Vikarma means actions which should not be done. So we've talked about in the karma yoga part of the Bhagavad Gita, karma, the whole meaning of karma. And there's actually subdivisions of karma. Karma means action, and there's actions that should not be done. There's actions that should be done, rules and regulation, which are karma, and then there are akarma. Akarma is karma that does activities that don't have any karmic reaction. That's Krishna consciousness. And then vikarma is karma actions which should not be done. And so the activities that we should not be done because they're not they're not even regulations, they're not even in the scriptures as things that will get karmic reaction, but they are rules and regulations, so they help elevate a person's consciousness a little bit. We're talking about vikarma. Vikarma is like sinful activities: murder, rape, homosexuality, transgender, abortion, whatever it might be as related to the body, whatever, bestiality, pedophilia, it goes on and on. So these are activities which should not be done. Therefore, we must practice sadhana bhakti, which means to offer mangala artik, deity worship in the morning, to refrain from material activities, to offer obeisances to the spiritual master, and to follow many other rules and regulations which will be discussed here one after another. So the spiritual master, in the process of giving you sadhana bhakti, will tell you, these are the things I want you to do. Follow the 4 regulative principles, chant your japa, chant kirtan, offer your deity worship in the morning, have a deity, or chant every day, offer your food, so on and so on. There's so many rules and regulations that are doing. Refrain from certain material activities, to offer so no eating meat, fish, or eggs. So you might be coming into chanting and then you want to kind of go a little deeper, so the spiritual master will say, well, ideally you want to try to follow the 4 regulative principles that will help you purify your mind and of desires for material enjoyment, and help you understand Krishna more. So eating meat, fish, or eggs is makes the brain convoluted. So you withdraw from those. You don't use intoxicants, drugs and alcohol, which fog the brain and impair our judgment. No sexual activity unless you're married with your wife, but no illicit sexual activity. So that's a whole thing, because that's agitating. No gambling. So when gambling also agitates the mind. So those are certain things that a lot of people do in this Western modern world. They just do it because everybody else does it, and it's fun, right? So, but it causes all these side effects. They're considered vikarma activities that shouldn't be done. And we don't follow the 4 regulative principles because it's some kind of spiritual thing. It's because it's inhibiting our spiritual progress. So we, just in the same way that if you're trying to lose weight, you will withstand withhold from sugary or greasy foods, and I do exercise and things like that to improve your body status and your health. Okay, so for obeisances to the spiritual master, and many are the rules and regulations which are discussed here one after another. These practices will help one to become cured of madness. So, you might be very attracted to these things, and that's usually the case. I was attracted to many things, but you kind of make those sacrifices, and it might be very difficult, but then after a while you're like, oh, I really want to do those kind of things, because you get the clearness of mind. And the man's mental disease is cured by the directions of a psychiatrist, so this sadhana bhakti cures the conditioned soul of his madness under the spell of Maya, material illusion. Narada Muni mentions his sadhana bhakti in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 1st chapter, 30th verse. He says there to King Yudhisthira, my dear king, one has to fix his mind on Krishna by any means. That is called Krishna consciousness. It is the duty of the Acharya, the spiritual master, to find the ways and means for his disciple to fix his mind on Krishna. That is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. So a person may come into conscious contact with the process of chanting. He comes in contact with the pure devotee. The pure devotee has the vision to see where that person is at. And just like an expert physician, he can say, okay, somebody might be wondering, well, why does he do this with this person and do this with this other? Gives this person much more strict guidelines, and this person, simple things like don't try to follow 4 regs, or do 2 or 3 rounds instead of 12. It's because the person's consciousness. And it's the same way that when a person comes into the process, we don't just like, oh, well, give up the four regs, chant japa, do these things. This is what you have to do to be part of this church or something. It's like, no, we just tell people, hey, if you want, come to chant with us, and it's fun. You can chant, you can have some food. We make really nice food, and we prashadam, and that is the way that they clear their heart. By the hearing the chanting, they become very attracted, and then they find the desire to be of service. So they may want to help out in some way, or they may say, well, I really like this process. Is there more that I should know, or more that I can take on? So it's not a fanatical thing where some religions are like, you have to do this, you have to do that, or you'll go to hell. It's like, it's a process of self-realization. So it's the individual is given not more than he can handle. So that's the point in this. One should fix his mind in Krishna by any means, and there's many ways that a person can become attracted. But even if they're a little bit attracted and they're attached on one little thing, whether it's going to the chant every week and still eating meat and drinking alcohol and womanizing and all those kind of things, the chanting itself is so powerful that it'll start to burn away. And there are many stories where people desire and taste for the karma, or the karma activities, starts to wane away, and they're like, I don't really want to drink today. I want to go to the chant, and I don't want to go out with my buddies, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot to be said about that. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us an authorized program for this purpose, centered around the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. In this day and age, in Kali Yuga, it's very difficult for people to do anything. So we give them a fun process. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is just chant the names of Krishna. Chant, chant, chant. Centered around the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. The chanting has so much power that it immediately attaches one to Krishna. That is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. Somehow or other, one has to fix his mind on Krishna. The great Saint Ambarisha Maharaj, although a responsible king, fixed his mind on Krishna, and similarly, anyone who tries to fix his mind in this way will very rapidly make progress in successfully reviving his original Krishna consciousness. Very cool. Now, this sadhana bhakti, or practice of devotional service, can also be divided into two parts. The first part is called regulative principles. One has to follow these different regulative principles by the order of the spiritual master or on the strength of authoritative scriptures, and there can be no question of refusal. That is called vaidhi, or regulated. One has to do it without any argument. Another part of sadhana bhakti is called the raganuga. Raganuga refers to the point at which, by following the regulative principles, one becomes a little more attached to Krishna and executes devotional service out of natural love. For example, a person engaged in devotional service may be ordered to rise early in the morning and offer artik, which is a form of deity worship. In the beginning, by the order of his spiritual master, one rises early in the morning and offers artik, but then he develops real attachment. When he gets this attachment, he automatically tries to decorate the deity and plans different kinds of dresses and thinks of different plans to execute his devotional service nicely. Although it is within the category of practice, this offering of loving service is spontaneous. So the practice of devotional service, sadhana bhakti, can be divided into two parts, namely regulative and spontaneous. So once again, that point of being that something very simple may be given. It might be really difficult for a person to do. You have to there is a certain amount of sacrifice in that. If a person decides, it's told, if you're going to live here, we get up in the morning and come to the morning artik. Well, it's very early. You might be used to sleeping in, and you enjoy the sleeping in, and there's a bit of an austerity of getting up in the morning, and you're like, oh, I'm just tired. But then you get attracted to it, so then you naturally make that sacrifice, and it's not very difficult after all because you really enjoy it. Rupa Goswami defines the first part of devotional practice, or vaidhi bhakti, as follows: when there is no attachment or no spontaneous loving service to the Lord, and one is engaged in the service of the Lord simply out of obedience to the order of the spiritual master or in pursuance of the scriptures, such obligatory service is called vaidhi bhakti. These principles of vaidhi bhakti are also described in Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 1st chapter, verse 35, where Shukadev Goswami instructs the dying Maharaj Parikshit as to his course of action. Maharaj Parikshit met Shukadev Goswami just a week before his death, and the king was perplexed as to what should be done before he was to pass on. Many other sages also arrived there, but no one could give him the proper direction. Shukadev Goswami, however, gave this direction to him as follows: my dear king, if you want to be fearless in meeting your death next week, for actually everyone is afraid at the point of death, then you must immediately begin the process of hearing and chanting and remembering God. That is so key. And this is what is really important for all of us to remember, that we don't know when our time of death is going to come. We just generally think it's going to be somewhere around 80 or 90. We'll live our life, and then we usually think, oh, I'll deal with spiritual life eventually. But the spontaneous attraction to serve Krishna is not really there. So if we find ourselves at the end of trying to spontaneously be attracted to Krishna, we will be very difficult. So this is why we're encouraged to begin the process of sadhana bhakti as soon as we hear about it, and we practice it every day, and we are building that thick skin so that time comes of death that we understand we will be fearless. We are ready to go home, and we will be a true yogi, a warrior for Krishna, in leaving our body and setting an example of us leaving without fear for other people. And not only should we do that ourselves, but we should help others understand that. You must immediately begin the process of hearing and chanting and remembering God. And that some people may be Muslims or Christians. So in the same way, you would read the Quran or say the 99 names of Allah, or pray to Allah. If we're a Christian, we pray to Lord Jesus Christ. We read the Bible, read the Psalms. We chant the names of Yahweh and Jehovah. If one can chant and hear Hare Krishna and always remember Lord Krishna, then he is sure to become fearless of death, which may come at any moment. And that's what it says in the Bible, death, where is thy sting? Because there is no sting if one is taking shelter in Krishna, because Krishna will just be there and help. It's not like it's going to be an easy walk through the park, but it'll be easier to be able to take shelter in our spiritual master in Krishna, the chanting of Krishna's names. Okay, one more paragraph. In the statements of Shukadev Goswami, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. Therefore, Shukadev recommends that one should always hear about Krishna. He does not recommend that one hear and chant about the demigods. The Mayavadis and personalists say that you can chant any name, either that of Krishna or those of the demigods, and that the result will be the same. But actually, this is not a fact. According to the authorized version of Srimad Bhagavatam, one has to hear and chant about Lord Vishnu, Krishna only. So, very wonderful topic, and fortunately our video didn't shut off, so thank you very much. We'll tune in next time. Namaste.